Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Great America Show. It's great to have you with us. I mean, we're just 3 short days away from the most important election of this lifetime, of our lifetime, I should say. You often hear me say it on the show, as in every single day. I mean, so much is on the ballot come Tuesday. On Tuesday, when you wake up, you're going to go to the ballot box and you're going to elect a new president. So just think about it. You're going to go to bed tonight. You've got Saturday night, you've got Sunday night, and you've got Monday night. And like I said, when you wake up on Tuesday morning, if you haven't already, you're going to go out and cast your vote for the next president of the United States. And I think probably unanimously on everyone who's watching the show are going to go down the ballot Republican, because we have no choice. Our lives depend on it like never before, whether it be foreign policy, whether it be the issues we have here at home with transgenders playing in sports with men, women in men's sports, inflation hitting homes across America. The price of everything just seemingly unaffordable, and our streets just unsafe. If you live in one of the big blue cities like I do here in New York City, you can't walk down the street without seeing a migrant gang member, within 10 blocks, because that's the new reality of what we've become. It's the reality of what Joe Biden has allowed in this country, and it's the reality of what Kamala Harris will continue to let into this country. You look over in the Middle East, Gaza and Palestine and Israel. There's no doubt in my mind that if Kamala wins on Tuesday night, there will be a two-state solution in Israel. There will be no more Israel. There's things like this when the Jewish voters go out and vote that they have to remember. You look at the right to life, the pro-life movement. That is going to be under assault at all new levels. The evangelicals, who seemingly don't go out and vote in masses, need to put that in the back of their minds and get out there and vote and vote and vote, because our lives do depend on it. I want to turn to some politics and our guest today. He's Gavin Wax. He's the president of the New York Young Republicans Club. Gavin's an old friend of mine. I saw Gavin over at the MSG Nazi rally on Sunday that President Trump was hosting. Gavin was gracious enough to bring 200 of his volunteers from the New York Young Republicans to help President Trump. Gavin, how are you today, partner?
It's great to see you, John. Thank you for having me on. And it was great to see you at MSG. I know you didn't want to tell your audience, but John actually goose-stepped into the venue. It was a horrible sight to behold.
He's absolutely right. And I snuck in. We did a little finagling. Gavin, Donald Trump's biggest supporter, it seems to be now, is none other than Joseph Robinette Biden, saying this the other day.
Or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware, they're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable, and it's un-American.
He almost said Puerto Rico, where I'm from. He called himself there. But, I mean, at this point in the campaign, how could you be making such a mistake like that? Or is it a mistake?
Well, listen, I think we were talking a bit about it backstage, and I think we both agree it may not have been a mistake at all. I mean, I think there's certainly an incentive here for Joe Biden and his extended family to sink Kamala's chances. I mean, Joe Biden would look amazing if Kamala were to lose. He could say, "I told you so."
Yeah.
He could say I was the only one keeping this Democrat coalition together, keeping it a winning coalition, preventing Trump from being in the White House. And he could say himself, I was the only Democrat to ever beat Donald Trump. So, look, I think, there's a possibility here that he was being a little Machiavellian with his remarks. There's a possibility he's just too stupid and old to realize what he's doing. I think you and I and all the Trump supporters out there will take this. It shifted the media narrative. It completely turned their own attack line against them. It was amazing. So we couldn't have asked for better from good old Joe Biden.
Let's talk about where this came from, this garbage comment. President Trump, one of his openers on the stage on Sunday at MSG, was a man by the name of Tony Hinchcliffe. I watched Tony's show. He's got a show out every Monday on YouTube. I highly recommend it to everybody. He's a brilliant comedian. He's very funny. It was an off-color comment at the wrong time, but nonetheless, Tony runs a show. It's called Kill Tony. For anyone who doesn't watch it, Tony brings on more minorities and more people with disabilities on his show and gives them a platform than anybody I've ever seen before, Gavin. I don't know if you watch it, but nonetheless, that's who Tony Hinchcliffe is. So Tony comes on. He makes a comment about a floating island of garbage, referring to Puerto Rico having a landfill issue, and a thing gets blown out of proportion. And I'm going back and forth on Twitter. I'm arguing with Peter Navarro, who's calling him an a-hole. And I'm like, Peter, I never thought you'd be the person to cave. And he's like, it's not caving, it's this, it's wrong timing. And I said, but we're the champions of free speech, Peter. You can't go out here and say we champion free speech and then come out and say you can't say that. Free speech protects the language that we don't like, the language that's not popular. That's what we do as Americans. That's our First Amendment right. People don't understand that. So I'm on Twitter, Gavin, more than I should be. And, I see people writing, we're going to lose this election because of this comment. And it's very simple, Gavin. We're not going to lose this election because of this comment. If we lose this election, it's because of the damn RINOs who get on their knees and beg for forgiveness every single damn time the Democrats come after us. Your thoughts?
No, amen. I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. We're the side that should understand comedy, should understand that comedy is about offending in large part. And that's how, comedy works. And no one was watching this Trump rally at home or in person, listening to the comedian, go after everyone. He was making jokes about Palestinians. He was making jokes about Jews. He was making jokes about everyone. That's comedy. No one was watching that. And then here's the Puerto Rico joke. And all of a sudden says, you know what? I was voting for Trump. All of a sudden, I can no longer support him. That's nonsense. It's a fairy tale. I think they've already done some Google analysis, looking up the search terms, and the Biden comments about calling Trump's supporters garbage were far outweighing in terms of the search volume, anything related to this Puerto Rico joke. I think it's an absolute, this whole thing is pathetic. And like you said, RINOs, these establishment Republicans, and Peter is not that. I'm not accusing Peter of being that.
Absolutely not.
But this mentality is pervasive, that they're constantly, on the back foot. They're constantly having to defend their position. They don't go on the offense. They don't allow themselves to reframe the argument. They allow the Democrats and the far left to frame everything. It's like that old expression, tell me why you don't beat your wife. And then all of a sudden, you already sound like you beat your wife. I mean, that's how the left operates. They put you on the defensive, and Republicans, conservatives, whoever, they need to get smart. They need to grow some balls, frankly, and they need to say, listen, it was a joke. Maybe you could say wasn't the best timing. Fine. Yeah. But it was a joke nonetheless. President Trump didn't even say it. And no one is changing their vote because of that joke. It's just not happening. It's nonsense. It's total smear.
You know what people, Gavin, don't know is George Lopez, the comedian, was on the trail with Kamala Harris 2 or 3 weeks ago. And he said something about building a wall, and you got to build the wall fast because if you leave the materials around, the Mexicans will go ahead and steal it, alluding to the fact that all Mexicans are thieves. Obviously, that's not true. But you didn't hear a word about it from the right, Gavin, and we shouldn't have because it's comedy. Comedy is not reality, and I keep saying it every day on the show to get it through to people's heads. For everyone who's offended by this, comedy is not reality. Get it through your head. Comedy saves people's lives. Some people go through spurts of depression, Gavin, and this saves them. A lot of comedians come out of drug issues and depression, and it saves their lives. It's not, excuse me, it's not reality, and people got to figure that out. Donald Trump,
frankly,
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and frankly, you were mentioning, you're a fan of Kill Tony. I mean, this is a huge, podcast show. I mean, he's a great performer, and he has a huge audience, particularly among young people, young men. This is a massive demographic, and all the people that know him, that watch him, which was a very large audience, they're not going to be turned off by this. If anything, they're probably shifting over to Trump because he did open at this rally. And I think it was a brilliant move. And I think it plays into what he's been doing on the podcast circuit with all these different forays into the, mass cultural media landscape, particularly targeting young millennials, Gen Z, et cetera. I think this is a great move. And I think despite one little joke that some people got offended by, overall, I think it was a great move to have him. And I think it really added some color and flair to the MSG rally.
And I was watching some reaction from, once again, people on Twitter interviewing people outside of MSG, Puerto Ricans, in fact. And, they were saying, we didn't particularly care for the joke. But at the end of the day, it's a joke. A joke's a joke. And we move on with it. I mean, it's Gavin, it blows my mind. But Donald Trump being the absolute greatest salesman, I guess second to maybe Mike Lindell with everything he's done in his life, with all of his properties and everything he owns, managing to turn a crisis into, I guess, something good. So President Trump was in Wisconsin yesterday, had a garbage truck waiting for him plain side, and did a little press conference from the garbage truck. Take a listen.
I'm going to make a speech. We're going to then try and beat the weather out because there's some bad weather coming in. But I just wanted to let you know that 250 million people, that's what I think the real number is for making America great again. 250 million, the real number. They don't
Oh my, the guy he's just brilliant. I mean, there's no other way to put it, Gavin, to turn a crisis into comedy.
Well, listen, this is exactly what we were just talking about. He's giving a lesson in the media. He's giving lesson in marketing to all these RINOs and establishment Republicans who would have ran from this issue and caved. I mean, this is how you spin it around. This is how you poke fun at your enemies. This is how you make light of it. This is how you change the entire frame of the news cycle. And honestly, he's doing it in a masterful way, playing off of what he did recently at the McDonald's. You know, he's dressing up, going to work at a McDonald's, going to work as a garbage man. I mean, I think people love this. They love it because they know he's not trying to be anything but himself. He's still Donald Trump. He's still in the suit. He's still the billionaire from Manhattan. He's still the president, but he's doing these things as himself. And I think that just shows a level of authenticity that a lot of other typical candidates can't recreate because they're so fake, they're so phony, they're so consultant driven. He's just himself having fun on the campaign trail, and people love it. You know, he took the selfie with the garbage truck driver. I mean, I think people love this stuff. And look, I think where there's a lot of sanitation workers across this country, they're blue collar guys. I think they're going to be coming out and voting for Trump in a big way.
Yeah, they're blue collar guys, and right here in New York, they make a decent amount of money. You and I both know when it snows, those guys they're making more money than us, Gavin, when it snows.
That's true.
But President Trump, like you said, he always finds a way to masterfully make a light out of something. We're going to take a quick break here. We're talking with Gavin Wax. He's the president of the New York Young Republicans. And we're going to take up further. President Trump didn't stop with the garbage truck. He went further. We're going to take that up on the other side of this break. We're talking with Gavin Wax. Stay with us.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra MyPillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic MyPillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen-size MyPillow for just $18.88. King size, only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use MyPillows for only $9.88. So go to MyPillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size MyPillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
We're back. We're talking with Gavin Wax. He's the president of the New York Young Republicans Club, and he does more work in New York perhaps than the Republican Party itself, whether it be garnering volunteers, holding important rallies, protests, peaceful protests, of course, no insurrections. It's great for the deep blue city of New York City, and we appreciate that, Gavin. I want to go a little bit further into President Trump making light out of something else. President Trump pulled up to his rally in that orange vest. Take a listen to him.
And then I got in the car and I'm driving over here and I have this still on. And I come into the arena and I say, "Where's my jacket? I want to get out of this thing." And they said, "It would be unbelievable if you could wear it on stage." I said, and I said, "No way. I got 25,000 people standing outside. I got all these people here. There's no way I'm wearing it on stage." They said, "Oh, okay, sir." I said, "Get me my jacket. But if you did, you know, it actually makes you look thinner." I said, "Oh." And they got me. I said, "I want to wear it on stage." When they said I look thinner, I said, "In that case, I'll wear it on stage." I may never wear a blue jacket again. I may go in this. I said that was the word, that was the key. "Sir, you look thinner." So anyway.
Oh my God. Gavin, he's brilliant. I mean, it doesn't get much smarter than that.
we're never going to have another one like him. I mean, we got to enjoy this while it lasts, because I think, the days of a post-Trump American political landscape are not going to be nearly as funny. I don't think anyone has that. I don't even know. He has this certain quality that can just make every little thing, hilarious, funny, humanizing. And this is why the left hates him. This is why the media hates him, because they can't label him effectively. They can't label him Hitler or fascist, because he's just having a good time. He's out there in the high visibility, vest, just cracking jokes, just being a real guy. And they just cannot demonize him effectively anymore the way they have demonized other Republicans in the past. So again, he's the Teflon Don for a reason. All these attacks have just fallen off him like water. And he's, up in the polls. He's, having a good time in the last swing of this race. It just goes to show that this is a very different election cycle. It's a confidence cycle for this campaign and candidate. And I'm really excited for what we're going to see on November 5th.
It's so funny that you just said that, because I brought my father out to the rally, and we were joined by Lou's wife, Debbie, a wonderful woman, and my best friend, who's his parents, lifelong Democrats. And I like to think that I brought him over to the right side and opened up his eyes. And, we're sitting there and they're calling it a Nazi rally and they're writing all those things. And the next day I read this article and I send it over to him. I go, now do you see what I've been trying to tell you for the last, since 2016? This is what they do. I said, you see this article, you see what they wrote. Was it any of that? Was it a Nazi rally? Was it any of that? No. The only flags, Gavin, I saw in that audience were Israeli flags, maybe a few Trump flags, but I saw so many people holding up Israeli flags. Where was the Nazi part of it? I mean, I just don't get it. But going back to what you were saying, it was so sad as I sat there and thought to myself, this will be the last time I will ever sit at one of these rallies, because there will never be another Trump rally again, whether it's J.D. Vance in 2028 or it's Don Jr. or whoever wants to run. There'll never be another Donald Trump, because nobody can get away with what Donald Trump gets away with. Go ahead.
You just gave me some goosebumps, because I didn't even think about that. That probably was, my last Trump rally as well. I mean, who knows? Maybe he's going to sneak something in last minute, but I wouldn't hold it. I wouldn't write it off with President Trump being the energetic candidate that he is. But listen, I think that is something that is going through the minds of a lot of Americans. I think that's why you're seeing these record crowds. We had probably close to 100,000 people in Midtown. They packed out all the bars and the pubs and the restaurants. And it was even more remarkable. There were no protests. There was no Antifa. There was no BLM. There were none of these things. I mean, that never would have happened in 2020. That never would have happened in 2016. I think the left just feels defeated. I think they know it's over. And I'm not saying that for us to get too cocky or arrogant. I'm just saying there's a certain energy and morale shift that's happened. The joy is gone from the Kamala campaign. All the joy is on the Republican side, on President Trump's side. You saw it there at that rally. And look, again, with this Nazi nonsense, it doesn't stick anymore. I mean, this is the same tired crap that they've been throwing around for years. Even establishment Republicans have used it against Trump supporters for a long time. No one buys it. I mean, are we supposed to believe that the Knicks or the Rangers or Billy Joel are also Nazis because they perform in MSG? I mean, it's just so stupid. And like you said, this was a New York crowd. There were American Jews there. There were African Americans. There were Latinos and Hispanics. It was all sorts of people there. This was anything but a Nazi rally. This was a true all-American New York City crowd, and I think that's why they hate it. So they just got to smear, but the smears aren't working.
You brought up a good point, and I was happened to be sitting just feet away from James Dolan, who's the owner of MSG and the owner of the Knicks, and I couldn't believe to see him there. And then I thought back in the back of my mind, he's one of those guys who doesn't give a damn. When James Dolan was putting facial recognition scanners in his building to not let the lawyers in who were suing him so brilliantly. For anyone who doesn't know the story, James Dolan was being sued by somebody from a concert, and the lawyer who's suing him was trying to come into MSG for a concert. James Dolan said, "Go to hell. You're not coming to MSG. You're suing me." So there's a whole controversy that the New York Liquor Commission was taking his liquor license away. James Dolan's story is he's a former alcoholic. He doesn't drink anymore. So James Dolan replied to them, "Go to hell. I don't drink anyway. And if you guys want to take my liquor license away, no problem. On every place that sells liquor in MSG, I'm going to put your guys' phone number." And that was the end of that, Gavin. It ended right there. You mentioned the lines. I mean, I've never seen something, being a New Yorker. I have season Knicks tickets. I go to probably 20 Knicks games a year, Gavin. I've never seen the stadium so packed. I've never seen lines like that in my entire life. When I got there, for everyone who watches the show, heard me tell the story Trump pollster John McLaughlin, who was on the show the other day. I saw John McLaughlin walking around Lawson. I said, John, where are you going? He goes, I'm part of the special guests for whatever, it's friends and guests. I said, oh, perfect. So am I. Where do we go? He goes, oh, I think we go up to the front of the line. So I go to the front of the line with John McLaughlin and my guests. And I say, all right, where do we go? We're the special guests. They go, no, this is the line. I go, what do you mean? Gavin, it was down one city block and all the way up 34th Street. It was probably 3/4 of a mile long. So I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, it's 12 o'clock at this point. The rally doesn't start till 2:30. And I'm looking, I'm going, I don't think we're getting in this thing. So I rush in a hurry. I text Trump's assistant. I go, listen, you got to help us out here. Luckily, they sent somebody out to get us. But going to your point that this was a New York rally, when I got in there, like I said, John and I were listed as special guests. Apparently, thousands of other people were. I thought that those thousands of other people, Gavin, were media people like me, people who were friends of him. It wasn't. It was people who have stories. It was people who wanted to be there. And by that, I mean, there was a lady sitting in front of me who was married to her husband for 50 years, Gavin, and an elderly lady. They're throwing out T-shirts. I catch a T-shirt. I give one to Lou's wife. I give one to her. And they get up to leave just before Trump finished speaking. I said, oh, where are you guys going? And her son said to me, she has cancer. She has lung cancer. She has 6 months to live, so she can't really breathe. She had to get out and beat the crowds. And this is all she wanted to do. And Gavin, right now it sinks my heart into my chest, thinking that 6 months to live, this is what you wanted. That you wanted to be at a Trump rally. And it means so much to think about it, the support that President Trump has. And you think that these people call us Nazis, Gavin. Trump is Hitler, that we're all fascists. I mean, what is wrong with them?
Look, I think these are crazy people. I think they're full of hate and rage, and a lot of times they're self-projecting. But I got to say, you're giving me goosebumps twice on the show now. It's pretty incredible with these stories and these anecdotes. So that's the Make America Great Again movement right there. In one summary, what you just told us, I think it just goes to show that there's so much passion, there's so much love for President Trump. This is the reason that he is the dominant force in American politics, not just within the Republican Party, which he completely dominated and took over in the past few years, but politics writ large across this country. He has such a loyal, dedicated following that really only care. I mean, they like him more than anything. They like him over the party. And this is why you see a lot of down ballot candidates. Now all of a sudden they're rushing to President Trump. Now they never used to do this before. They're rushing to him. You know, they could have been RINOs. They could have been more establishment. They're begging him because he's getting the people out to vote. He's getting the people to come out to the polls. People are voting for him more than anything, more than the Republican Party, which in many cases they feel very disappointed in. And I think it just goes to show he's really reshaped the entire landscape, so much so that what you were saying about the lines, about how Midtown was packed. I saw similar things. You know, I was coming out every now and then. I mean, it was like a sea of people. And then you were coming through the special guest VIP area. I mean, the line just for special guest and VIP was like the size of its own rally. I mean, that's how crazy it was, let alone the GA entrance for the rest of the crowd. So, look, I think no one in a million years ever would have thought a Republican, let alone President Trump, would have come to Manhattan, come to New York City, the heart of liberal blue America, and sold out MSG. You know, he was talking about this over a year ago. Talked about it when he came and stopped at our gala in December. And now, look, it happened. He did this. Yeah. He did the Bronx. People forget he had a 10, 15,000 person rally in the Bronx that everyone forgets about. No Republican, no Democrat even. I know Jimmy Carter and Reagan both tried to go to the Bronx. They were both booed, chased out. President Trump goes there, into the, talk about as Democrat as they come, like 90-10 district. And he gets a massive crowd, massive audience. He ends up going back to go to a barber shop. He did the stop in Harlem. So look, this is a candidate. He's a man of all the people, all Americans. He's not leaving a single vote on the table, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
Like I said, Gavin, when I found out that the line was so long for special guests, I was annoyed. And when I got in there and saw that there was a reserved seat, I was a little bit less annoyed. But then I realized that I was amongst regular people, Gavin. I wasn't amongst people like me who go out here and talk every day about this. And I was suddenly happy because I knew that I was around hardworking Americans who, probably this was their first time rally. I think 50% of the people there, Gavin, was their first time being at a Trump rally. 90,000 people within the vicinity of MSG. According to GPS data, only 20,000 were allowed in. Those are numbers, Gavin, that you get in a deep blue state when something is changing. There's a changing landscape. I want to take one more quick break here. When we return, AOC, another fellow New Yorker of ours, is gushing over Doug Emhoff, the first gentleman, Kamala Harris's husband, we'll call him. And I also want to take up a possible Trump administration and who works in there. Bobby Kennedy is a name that's floated very often. He wants a very specific job, and MSNBC and CNN are melting down about it. We'll tell you all about it. We're talking with Gavin Wax. He's the president of the New York Young Republicans. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
A large retail store just canceled a huge order, leaving us with a ton of extra My Pillows. But you know what? That's their loss. I'm going to make it your gain. For the first time ever, you get standard classic My Pillows for wholesale prices, only $14.88. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Only $14.88. But it gets even better. For a limited time, I'm going to offer my entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Upgrade to a queen size My Pillow for just $18.88. King size only $1 more. Get my body pillows for $29.88 and multi-use My Pillows for only $9.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on the screen. Use your promo code to take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever on TV, including my standard size My Pillow, only $14.88. They've never been offered this low before. We have limited quantities at this price, so limit's going to be 10, and once they're gone, they're gone.
We're back. We're talking with Gavin Wax of the New York Young Republicans, a great organization. Gavin, I want to turn to AOC, gushing over Doug Emhoff, saying he's a man brimming with masculinity, saying that he embodies that really well, and everyone's proud of him. She's telling a packed-out crowd of college students. What's there to be proud about, Gavin? He knocked up a nanny, and he beat his ex-girlfriend. Is this what the Democrats are all for?
Well, listen, the Democrat will forgive all your sins if you vote for the Democrat. I mean, that's basically all it is. If you are a Democrat, you can do no wrong. If you are, a diehard leftist, you can do no wrong. Doesn't matter if you beat women. Doesn't matter if you cheat on your wife and sleep with the nanny. I mean, this guy is a complete, frankly, he's scum. I mean, that's really what he is. And this is now the new face of Democrat-approved, masculine feminism, I guess, is what she's trying to label it as. I think this just goes to show they're a joke. They have no principles. They have no views. They're just in it for power. They're just in it to, take over the country and advance their agenda. And they'll write off every sin imaginable, including things that they supposedly hold very dear, if it means that they can win and they can move their agenda forward. So that's really all this is.
Yeah, they are Marxist to the bone, Gavin. And I'm not, at first I was convinced that they were stupid, but now I just think they're a bunch of liars and they know exactly what they're doing. AOC, for one, a total Marxist, but she knows what she's doing. She may not be the brightest bulb, but she knows the issues she's causing. I want to turn to a possible second Trump administration and some of his cabinet members. Bobby Kennedy, RFK, is very big into health, the FDA, HHS. Howard Lutnick, who's co-chairing his transition team, was on CNN debating with Caitlin Collins of CNN. I want to play this clip for everybody.
One other person who was on stage recently and was talking about coming into the administration is RFK Jr. He said that Trump has promised him control of the public health agencies, HHS, which would be also, CDC, FDA, USDA, all of these agencies. Is that true? Has Trump promised him basically the HHS job?
So I spent 2.5 hours this week with Bobby Kennedy Jr. And it was the most extraordinary thing because let's face it, we've all heard on the news all sorts of sort of snarky comments about him. And I said, so tell me, how's it going to go? And he said, why don't you just listen to me explain things? And what he explained was when he was born, we had 3 vaccines and autism was 1 in 10,000. Now a baby's born with 76 vaccines because in 1986, they waived product liability for vaccines. And here's the best one. They started paying the people at the NIH, right? They pay them a piece of the money for the vaccine companies. Wait a minute, let me finish. And so all of these vaccines came out without product liability. So what happened now? Autism is 1 in 34.
Okay,
amazing.
Neither of us are doctors. Vaccines are safe. RFK,
Why do you think vaccines are safe? There's no product liability anymore. They're not proven.
Kids get them and they're fine.
Why do you think they're fine?
But because they're proven scientifically to be
How about this? There was 1 in 10,000 people with autism. We all know so many more people with autism than had it when we were young. Oh, come on.
Okay,
his point is really interesting.
But
so here's what he
vaccines
said.
don't cause autism, which is what RFK pushes, which is why people are concerned that he could get a job like HHS. And I don't even think he could
getting a job for HHS. What he's trying to do, here's what he wants to do. He said, I want data. I just want data because they block the data.
But the data's out there.
Wait, it's not.
They don't block it. You can look at it. It's online.
He wants the data so he can say these things are unsafe. He says, if you give me the data, all I want is the data, and I'll take on the data and show that it's not safe. And then if you pull the product liability, the companies will yank these vaccines right off of the market. So that's his point. He's not trying to do anything but things that made sense. And look,
this is not where I thought this was going because...
Well, I spent 2.5 hours.
RFK Jr. is a vaccine skeptic. He pushes lies about vaccines. And I don't even think if Republicans...
Why do you think he pushes lies? Why you said... You said, I'm not a scientist and you aren't. So
but
he just
scientists say he pushes lies. But
scientists were paid to say he pushes lies. I mean, let's give him the data. I think it'd be pretty cool to give him the data. Let's see what he comes up with.
Okay.
I think it's pretty fun.
He pushed conspiracies about COVID. He had to apologize for tying vaccine questions to what happened in Germany during the Holocaust.
I promise you, I have not looked at all the things he said.
So I don't think he's the leading voice that anyone's looking at for on
he said Roundup. Remember Roundup?
I couldn't take any more of that, Gavin. The stupidity of it. She sat there and said, neither of us are doctors, neither of us are scientists, and then went on to say that vaccines are safe. Well, I mean, you literally directly contradicted. Howard Lutnick brings up a good point, and so does RFK. Why is it that autism rates are so much higher than they are when they were years ago? 1 in 34 now, Gavin? That's insane. Where's it coming from?
It's absolutely insane. Look, I give all the props to Howard Lutnick for going in there in the lion's den and defending, RFK Jr., defending Trump. I mean, he shows a lot more courage than most Republicans. Again, that's a theme through this podcast we've been doing. But listen, I mean, she didn't even seem to grasp basic concepts like these blanket like waiving liability, product liability. They give this blanket immunity to these companies so they don't face the repercussions for anything. And the fact of the matter is that we do have a lot of data, and the data shows that this massive increase in our vaccine schedule, which is totally out of lockstep with most of the developed world. And as a result, our autism is jumping sky high. We have a litany of other chronic disease, other, obesity, like we mentioned, autism. Everything's on the rise right now. And they don't want to look at the data. They don't want to look at what's causing it. I mean, they talk about things like, RFK Jr. talks about things like obesity when our caloric intake has not increased since like 1900. It's basically been around, 3,500 calories a day, yet people are getting more obese by the day. It's because of what's in the food. They don't want to talk about that. They don't want to talk about what's in these vaccines. They don't want to talk about why you need some of these vaccines. I mean, some of these vaccines, I just had my first child and we're at the hospital and they wanted to give my baby son a hepatitis B vaccine. Now, the hepatitis B can only be passed through sexually transmitted or through dirty needles. Right. So, and not to mention, where is that coming from? Why do we need to do that? It's all because of money. They're charging for all of these things. Everything's a buck. They're buying off a lot of the medical boards. They're buying off a lot of these institutes because they're providing most of the funding. And who's they? This is big pharma. This is big medicine. This is all the corporate interest. These are very sensible things. You don't have to be a doctor to understand the logic and the incentive structure that goes into this stuff. And Caitlin Collins, Dylan Mulvaney, excuse me, just looked like a complete idiot, debating with Lutnick, who clearly this is not even Lutnick's primary issue. He's being very open and saying, listen, I just talked to RFK. This is what he told me. It makes a lot of sense. And he was still wiping the floor with her. She had nothing to explain this phenomenon, particularly as it came to autism rates.
For everyone who doesn't know Howard Lutnick is the CEO of Cantor Fitzgerald. Cantor Fitzgerald lost, I think, majority of their employees, over 650 employees on 9/11. They were on the 101st to 105th floors in the Twin Towers. And Howard Lutnick paid, I believe, for every one of those people's children to go to college, any higher education they decided to go to. Howard Lutnick is no dummy, and he's a stand-up guy from all accounts that we've seen. Product liability, Gavin, why would you need product liability if you were doing the right thing? If you knew now these vaccines, these hepatitis vaccines have been around forever. We've gotten them forever. Why would you need product liability? And that's the one that I always bring up is hepatitis B. If you come from two clean parents, now some people say hepatitis B, you should get it. Your baby should get it if the parent was a drug user and was using needles or abusing needles, or if they were very sexually active or whatever. But for someone like Gavin Wax, I trust that you're probably doing the right thing, Gavin. I don't think you're shooting up heroin in your living room, and I don't think your wife's guilty of infidelity. So why is Gavin Wax's child have to get this vaccine? It makes no sense. But as Howard said, you get rid of that product liability, Gavin, and I think you'll see things will probably change. Your thoughts?
Oh, very quickly. Listen, I think, they want to sell this product. People want to really inject themselves with it. Fine. But there has to be, you cannot have this blanket immunity. You should be open to civil litigation. There are tons of people who have had these vaccines. And the thing about it, it's so weird. They push all the vaccines all at once. And I know many people, they may want to just get some of the vaccines. They don't want to get them the day the baby's born. The second the baby's born, they're trying to give them like 10, 15 injections. It's insane. They won't even let you space it out. And I think a big reason for it is because it makes it much more difficult to determine if there's any adverse effects, which vaccine it came from. So these things they're meant to suppress any kind of reporting, medical reporting, showing the adverse effects of these vaccines. And these vaccines, frankly, are loaded with heavy metals. They're loaded with other toxins, these preservatives. And that autism is very much tied and linked to the amount of heavy metals in your blood. And there have been things that have done to reduce the amount of heavy metals in your blood and reverse the symptoms of autism. So it just goes to show they're really suppressing this information. They're not looking out for public health. They're not looking out for the best interests of the patients. It's all about the dollar signs at the end of the day. And I think a lot of people were woken up to the evils of big pharma and the evils of our entire system right now during COVID, frankly. And I think that woke up a lot of Americans who trusted the doctors, who trusted the system. But you're looking at the rest of the world, our life expectancy is going down. All of our rates of chronic illness are going up. We've been more medicalized than ever, and we've been more unhealthy. That's why the Make America Healthy Again merging with MAGA, it has been brilliant. And the RFK Jr. Trump alliance is something to behold.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. During COVID, if we learned one thing, when the government tells you have to, it means you probably shouldn't be doing it because it's a mandate. And that's not America. You want to talk about Nazis? That's Naziville. That's not America. Sitting here telling us we have to do this, you have to do that. And I know people, Gavin, who left New York and moved down to Florida where there's freedom, where they didn't have to stick their kids with vaccines. A close friend of mine, unconfirmed, but the timeline makes sense, had a kid's perfectly healthy, goes in for one of its vaccines that they get when they're 4 or 5 years old. The kid was never the same again, didn't speak. And now they had to move to Florida because they wouldn't give their kids the other vaccines that they had to take up here in New York. I mean, it's truly sick what this government has done to us, Gavin. And if you dare speak out against it, you're a Nazi, you're a fascist, you're a vaccine denier. And we're taking that from Caitlin Collins of CNN, who's never done a thing in her life. Makes millions of dollars a year to go out on CNN and spew propaganda. Very sick.
And we know plenty of people, older siblings, cousins, whatever. Maybe they were born in the early 80s, when the vaccine schedule was maybe, I think, 10, in the early 80s. Do you know of a whole epidemic of people born in the early 80s who were just dying, from all these easily preventable diseases and things like that? No, of course not. This really ballooned exactly after they implemented that liability protection. It ballooned in the 90s. It ballooned in the early 2000s, even more so. So we have the data right in front of us. You could go find an older brother, an older sister, a cousin, whoever, ask them, you were born 1982, 1981, whatever it may be. Did you struggle with all these issues because the vaccine schedule was a little bit lighter back then? Of course not. It just makes no sense. It's not like public health has drastically improved since then. I would argue it's drastically worsened in all categories since then. And I think people are finally waking up to it. They're looking for questions, and they're also looking for justice. The case you just mentioned. I mean, imagine that. Imagine your 4 or 5 year old child, perfectly healthy, perfectly normal, gets a shot. All of a sudden, they have complete damage to the rest of their life. What's your recourse? What's your recourse there? It's disgusting.
Yeah. You mentioned back in the days, I had two grandparents, both of obviously I have two grandparents, but on my mother's side and my father's side. My mother's heritage is Italian. My father's heritage is Irish and Polish. So two completely different bloodlines. Both my grandfathers passed away younger from diabetes, one cancer, the other from smoking. Understandable. Both of my grandparents, Gavin, were born in 1918. They lived to 102, one of them, and 103. I'd love for anyone to go back and look at what vaccines they were given out in 1918. It was probably minimally or nothing. And they lived to 102. And now, Gavin, they want to tell you that butter is bad for you and all this stuff's bad for you. They grew up on butter. They grew up on olive oil. All the stuff they say that clogs your arteries. They live to 102, 103 years old.
Eggs.
Gavin, I go buy a bottle of Pam spray. You look at the back. It should just be olive oil or some sort of carbonation to make it come out. Silicone for preservation? Silicone, really?
And these ingredients are subsidized. I mean, we pay for a lot of this preservatives, a lot of this crap, the sugars, all that stuff to be added. You look at Europe, I'm not saying Europe's perfect by any means, but the one thing they do a little bit better is their food quality. You go to a place like Italy, you go to all these other places, they're eating plenty, all right? They're eating plenty. You always hear these stories. People go on vacations to Europe, they eat like a pig and they lose weight. It's because it's not the calories, it's what's going into the food. It's all these different things we're cooking with, the seed oils, which now is becoming a big topic. All of this stuff was very modern. It really took off in the last 30, 40 years, and it takes a while to work its way into the supply chains, work its way through your body. It builds up over years. But all the stuff that people have cooked with and ate with for hundreds of thousands of years, butter, olive oil, all these basic things, eating eggs, eating milk, drinking milk, whatever it may be, all of a sudden they become demonized, and you're being pushed to this processed industrial food. My grandmother also just turned 100 this past month. She grew up eating, butter, olive oil, all the things you think are bad, probably didn't get a single vaccine growing up, and she's healthier than ever. She's healthier than many people 30 years or juniors. It just goes to show, something is wrong, and we're doing something very, if you don't understand what's in your food, if you're reading the label like you just said, and it's a bunch of, 40 character long words of chemicals and toxins, that's bad. And it doesn't matter what the label on the front says, approved by doctors, this was tested, or this is organic. It's all nonsense. You got to read the labels, because they're just pushing fraud in terms of their advertising. All this stuff is toxic. It's really bad for you.
Yeah. When Bobby Kennedy came on, he was doing the whole health thing, make America healthy again. I said, whatever, it is what it is. It's great messaging. But, as we talk about it and you think about it more and more every day, that what goes into it, the vaccines, what's in our food, the FDA, it makes you really think that it's more important than perhaps even building a border wall, which I think is among the most important thing that we need to do in this country. But it really makes you think about, the issues that we're having, Gavin. Gavin Wax, it's been a delightful conversation, insightful. Come back soon. Gavin Wax, the president of the New York Young Republicans. Thanks so much, brother.
Thank you, sir. Have a good one.
Thanks to Gavin Wax, and thank you all for being with us today. Please be sure to join us back here tomorrow for the Great America Saturday show as our quest for truth, justice, and the American way continues. Be sure to follow me on Twitter at John Fawcett NY. We're also now on Instagram. You can follow the show on Instagram, The Great America Show on Instagram. Be sure to follow us there. We'll be posting clips of the show, our highlights from our guests, and much, much more. We're going to be doing giveaways and contests, all that fun stuff over on our Instagram page. We'll see you right back here tomorrow. May God bless you. May God bless America. And may God bless the great Lou Dobbs.